Very cool, very cool. It's like, you've been through a journey there, and it's just sharing that journey with other people, and sharing, and people hearing about that, and they think, oh wow, she did that, and she had a job and she had kids and she still did it, and now she's able to do run marathons and things like that's super inspiring. That's
I think that's
awesome.
what you sometimes needed to hear when you're on the other side. It's so cool to be the person now that gets to watch the videos.
Hello everyone, we have an awesome interview. So here is Katrina from New Zealand. She was ill with chronic fatigue syndrome for 2 years, and now she's totally better. So let's get started. Hi Katrina, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Awesome, very good. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about your story. So first of all, what was your life like before you got chronic fatigue? So what kind of things were you enjoying?
Before I got chronic fatigue, just your usual busy, active woman, really. I'm a high school teacher and live on a lifestyle block with my husband and 2 young boys at the time. And I was really into running and adventure racing and riding horses. And yeah, I was a go person.
And so how did it start for you? What were the first signs of the illness?
It was really, my journey's really kind of an unusual one in that I didn't become horribly unwell straight away. I think I got a virus, potentially. I don't, maybe the COVID vaccine. I don't know, because it kind of correlated. And I just felt really low energy and just constant sort of sore throat. And it just wouldn't go away. And anytime I sort of tried to do exercise, it would make it so much worse. I would have horrible aches and pains from small amounts of exercise, and just constantly felt like I was unwell, but I could still function. I could go to work, but I just never had any energy.
Wow. That must have been a shock to the system, like such a huge change in your health.
It was really confusing. And so then I would think that maybe I'd be okay, or I'll finally get over it. And I just kept pushing. And it went on. I saw the doctors a few times and then had bloods done, and the usual story, everything comes back fine. She was not even looking at the idea of chronic fatigue until it had been sort of 6 months or so. And then probably with about 7 months, my GP said it's potentially chronic fatigue, which I think that was my worst fear, because I always read about chronic fatigue because exercise was my outlet. That's just what makes me me. And I knew that it made it worse. And at this point, when I would Google chronic fatigue, it would say there's a 3%, recovery rate, and this is your life now. And
my goodness,
I was devastated. And I think even though I was still functioning then, what happened was that I just started to get progressively worse because I got so unhappy and so stressed out. And so that I then saw a specialist in chronic fatigue in New Zealand and had a one-on-one meeting with her, which was great, but it still didn't give me any guidelines. And she maybe mentioned meditation once, but there was nothing. There was no real help. And again, I just got progressively worse. So probably about 9 or 10 months in, my doctor then was like, oh, well, I can give you some antidepressants. And I just remember thinking,
that's the least thing you wanted, probably.
I don't.
My goodness.
Yeah. And I just thought, well, I'm only depressed because this just seems such doom and gloom. There's no hope, and you're all telling me really that there's not much hope. And
how wrong they were.
And so then,
thankfully,
yeah. And so, and at this point as well, I'd sort of been transitioning into wanting to go to a different job the following year. And then I was starting to get really nervous that I wouldn't be who I'd always been, that I, when I got employed with them to start the following year. And so I thought, okay, I'll try the antidepressants. Maybe they'll help. Oh, and sorry, also the chronic fatigue specialist had prescribed B12 shots.
Okay.
And to get them weekly. And they did absolutely nothing. So while I was doing that, then I was prescribed the antidepressants. The first night of taking them, and I hadn't been sleeping at all, I was knocked out for the night.
Wow.
But I remember waking in the morning and my husband brought me in a cup of tea and I couldn't physically hold the cup. my body had shut down
Wow.
completely. So that was when I hit rock bottom.
Wow. And what were the symptoms like for you at rock bottom?
Terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't stand for more than 5 minutes. I would just get incredibly dizzy.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt so unwell. My body just physically couldn't really hold itself up very easily.
Mm-hmm.
I remember forcing myself to go to work, and I couldn't. I had to come home, and I was crying. And then my dad, who's also a doctor, came over, and they were deeply concerned.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and he's sort of like from the older school days. They used to call it the Tapanui flu here. And as
I
much as it was
understand.
helpful, he still didn't have any answers as to how I could get better. It was just, you need to stop doing everything. I had to stop taking my kids to sports practices. I had to, I would have to lie down all the time. And the worst and probably the most like embarrassing part was my noise sensitivity. So if the kids made noise, it made me feel so unwell. And then even like a dish being moved in the kitchen, it was like scratching, on a chalkboard for me. And it would just make me feel physically sick. I could hear everything. I couldn't handle any busy places. And so I felt horribly isolated. I had to wear earmuffs inside.
I
It
understand.
was, awful.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, another thing that came with it was the deep shame. I was quite isolated with the illness. It's an invisible illness, isn't it? You kind of present well to other people, and everyone knew me as the girl that would go out, that would run, that would do this and that, and just suddenly I could barely function, and I don't like asking for help, and I had to.
I understand. And what was it like in terms of trying different treatments? What were some of the things that you tried over the years?
So I didn't ever try the antidepressants again. I then just kept Googling supplements and other things. So then spending, like you hear everyone's stories very similar, all this money on. I'm trying to think of what some of the things were. It was all sorts of, like, from books I'd read. So then I'd buy into all of that and be spending, money that I didn't really have because I was having to stop working, and had no sick leave left. And it all just compounded the stress, and nothing worked. I mean, if you thought placebo was working, it certainly didn't with the B12 shots or anything like that.
I understand.
Nothing. Yeah.
You also mentioned you had brain fog as well. I remember I had that. That was unbelievable. It was like, I couldn't remember my name, let alone anything else sometimes.
No, I would forget, like my PIN number, just things like that.
I understand.
Yeah. And just forming sometimes a conversation with someone was incredibly draining.
I understand.
Yeah.
And with the fatigue, you noticed sore muscles as well. Is that right?
So I think they call that fibromyalgia now. I've got another friend who's obviously a doctor, and she was lovely. But again, it's just so hard to get access to actual help. But that often comes with, chronic fatigue. I think I would spend a lot of time in the bath.
I understand. Yeah, Epsom salt baths and everything. I remember doing the exact same thing.
And it would like you'd run a marathon, but I had barely moved, and everything would just be working.
I understand. So what was it like for your family? It must have been very challenging for your family as well.
Really challenging. My parents were wonderful. I know they were really concerned because it was so out of character for me. It was really hard on my husband. Because he didn't get it, It's sort of like, why, you'd come home and I'd be just lying on the floor and the kids would be doing something. And, and he was incredibly supportive, but he's the first to admit he just didn't understand what on earth had happened or what was going on. Yeah.
And when did you find brain retraining? How did you find it?
So I then went into sort of a miserable summer where I had just gone to such a bleak and dark place because I didn't know how I was going to approach this new job or even if I could go to it. And I constantly Googled things like, can you run again after chronic fatigue? I needed hope.
Reassurance.
And then I would never find anything on the internet, and just randomly one different way of typing it in brought me to that Raylan Nagel's.
Awesome. Raylan Nagel. Yeah, lovely lady.
Yeah. Channel. And it was something about a thing that must have been one of her clips that she had done from running. And then I started watching her, and it was the first time I'd seen hope.
Awesome.
And it was incredible. And so I think that was January a year later, and then I watched an interview with you.
Excellent.
And I thought, this looks like it's worthwhile trying.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you signed up for my program, and then what kind of results did you notice when you started the program?
It was pretty instant for
Awesome.
a kind of like that 70% recovery. It had a, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So for me, I noticed quite drastic changes just in energy to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to move. I think it was maybe a week or two into the program, I was driving my kids. I could drive them, like we went out to a beach and there were dolphins. And so they were running to like kind of get to them in the water with their bodyboards. And I found myself starting to jog and my body didn't shut down. And I just
Awesome.
remember being like, wow,
So
there
good.
was just this sense of hope and joy and yeah,
Freedom. Yeah, getting
yeah,
stronger and healthier.
yeah,
My goodness, what
yeah,
an incredible feeling.
yeah, it really was. Yeah.
Awesome. And so, yeah, so you mentioned that pretty quickly you got to about like 70% healed. And
Yeah.
then then you were progressing then towards 100% over a little bit longer as well.
I
Yeah.
had not an easy trajectory of up. I had a lot of um, flare ups still. And I think
Yeah. Dips and
the
peaks.
more I learn about chronic fatigue now, the more I understand why, because I would go resort back to old ways,
Uh-huh.
pushing and,
Uh-huh.
stress, um, doing things before I was ready. And also still perhaps not really, I think one of the rounds that you do when you're finding self compassion, I
Mhm.
don't think I've nailed that one as much as I should have. I think that
Okay.
one is so key.
So incredibly important.
Like actually being nice to yourself and forgiving
Yes.
yourself for things. Because I'd fall back to that pattern of being like, oh, why can't you run? Or you're doing this, and oh, I've gone backwards again. And so that only makes the harder. But all of the tools that you had
Uh-huh.
given me, it was like if you had those setbacks, you knew you had that toolkit to
Uh-huh.
pick yourself back up again.
Uh-huh.
And so it took a while, but I also probably wasn't in a situation like some people where they can go, I'm taking a year off to find myself. I had
Yeah.
2 kids, I had a job, and it was just
Normal
so
life. Yeah.
that idea of going, it just took a bit longer. But I was able to function and do all of those things, as a result. But my full recovery just, probably took a bit longer than some.
But hey, you made it. Hell
But
yeah.
I
Well
made it.
done.
That's it. Yeah. And
Awesome.
I mean, and in everyone's journey, you realize is just so uniquely different.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why,
Yeah.
when we are going through the brain training, I was helping you to customize some of the things to suit you as well. Like,
Mm. Yeah.
you were definitely like a type A overachiever pattern for sure. I was as well, totally. So learning that self-compassion was like a big part of the recovery for both of us, definitely. But yeah, in terms of your brain training, what did it kind of look like for you on a daily basis? So, can you give people maybe a little bit of an insight into what you're doing on a daily basis?
Initially,
Yeah, with the brain training.
yeah. So when we first started, I probably didn't do as many, maybe 4 to 6 rounds. And I
Okay.
found the visualization, probably one of the tools I used from yours that I found incredibly powerful was actually your recordings. You
Okay.
would take us on a journey.
Awesome.
And for me personally, visualizing being well
Hmm.
and those sort of meditation ones
Hmm.
was incredibly powerful. Yeah, I think it
Awesome.
really calmed my nervous system. I mean, I was using your stuff. I still have the audios. And right up until, an event that I was doing because I was struggling to sleep. So I put those back on.
Awesome. Excellent.
Yeah.
Fantastic. You had that there all the time. Anytime that you needed it, you could use
You
that.
have to
That's awesome.
ingrain this stuff into your lifestyle now. It's a constant work in progress for me.
Awesome. So,
Yeah.
what kind of things have you learned from this? How have you grown from this experience of healing?
I listen to my body a lot more
Excellent.
now. I still think there's moments where it's kind of, I'll feel a little tingle in the throat or something, and it's just going, okay, I hear you.
You listen
I'll
to
take
it
a
now.
minute. Yeah, yeah,
That's good. That's good. You're listening to
yeah.
your body. Yeah, I think for me
Mm,
in the past, I never used to listen to my body. I was always pushing through and
yeah,
doing more and more things. But yeah, it's like listening to your body and being kind to yourself. That's
that's
sustainability,
it.
definitely. That's like,
So much more self compassion and positive self talk, and
yeah, healthy
it's
habits.
yeah, that's it.
Excellent. Very good. So what do you think would be a breakthrough moment for you in your healing?
My biggest goal was always to run again. I think I harped on about that with you a lot. Just about, can I run again?
I remember. Yeah.
That was always for me, and that took a while. And I remember there used to be a run that we'd do near a holiday place that we go to, and it was about 20K. And I thought, so many of the visions that we would do, it would be picturing that run, and then the ultimate was to get back to ultra, do my first ultra. And,
Awesome.
so I've managed to do both. It was just, I would have these little mini goals, and even while training for the ultra marathon that I've recently just completed, I would make sure that I celebrated each of the training runs too.
Excellent.
I couldn't do that distance before, and I've done it again now, and I've made it, and I haven't, I've made each training, and so I do not take it for granted. Just having health and it's such an amazing feeling, and those positive visualizations that you get us to do is just, that was it for me. Yeah.
Excellent. Fantastic. So with your progression, so you did like a 60K run. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. The ultra marathon. Awesome.
Yeah.
So what was your progression like up to that point? Can you share a little bit more of that?
So I probably, when we first, it was a year on probably from the brain retraining that I was able to consistently run without, I think I kept pushing myself a little bit. So, and then, really what I would do, and what I would still encompass within the running would be a lot of meditating. So where I would picture myself doing the run and feeling energized and feeling really good.
Yeah.
And then I would sort of, as I was saying, like each goal point of just starting off, I can now walk 12K, and then it's right, well, I might be able to run 6K. And then it's, as the months went by, I was just slowly ticking off more and more distances. So, yes, it's technically pacing, but it's also just proving and teaching my body that it's completely fine and it's safe and it can do it again.
Excellent. Fantastic. Such a liberating feeling, being able to do more things and feeling good afterwards as well. That's totally awesome. Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
I congratulate you. You put in all the effort. So that's absolutely awesome. Now you have your complete freedom.
Yep, it's wonderful.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So cool. Like when you get your, complete health back and you're able to do anything that you love to do. It's like, it's hard to describe that to the average kind of person. Like when you've lost something and then you regained it, my goodness, that is totally incredible. It's like your gratitude goes through the roof.
It does. I think sometimes I look nuts. I'll just be out for just a normal run around the roads, but I'm often just so busy smiling.
Awesome. Love it.
I don't take it for granted.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
Yeah.
If someone was thinking about joining my program, what would you say to them?
Do it. You've just got nothing to lose, and you'll adapt to them and their journey, and it's so worth it, if it even helps a little bit on the stepping stones. It is, you've got to invest in your health.
Awesome. Fantastic. And so if someone was starting brain training, what's some advice that you would give them? Like what could they do to kind of really make the most of it?
Take your time. Yeah, just take your time. I think there's sometimes, there's the pressure to be better quickly, and it's just not that journey for everyone. And I think just it's that other thing, just because we are those type A personalities a lot of the time, just find what works for you, within the brain retraining and what way suits you. And I think, and just be ever so kind to yourself in the process, that, it can take time, but it works.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
So what are you looking forward to next?
Well, maybe I've got another ultra up my sleeve. I might be with my best friend this time. The last one, my husband ran by my side, so that was pretty special. Just living life. Just keep adventuring. Yeah.
Fantastic. And what is it like for your hubby? My goodness, he must be super overjoyed to see you fully better, enjoying all kinds of things.
Yeah, it's incredible. And he's been so supportive, and he does, I think, feel very proud. Yeah.
Incredible. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Katrina. I'm sure you're going to inspire so many people with this. Incredible story, doing all kinds of activities now at your complete freedom.
An absolute
Everyone out there, if you could do one thing to just share this inspiration with people, that would be awesome. Thank you so much, Katrina. All right. Have an excellent day. Bye bye. Take care.
Thank you.
If you would like to watch more inspiring videos like this, you can watch my clients' victory stories, or you can watch my full recovery story here.